As a volleyball coach, you have lots of duties. One of the most important of them is preparing your players for competition by teaching them how to execute the fundamental tactics and techniques. When your team can execute solidly, they stand a better chance of winning. Hi, I'm Jim Gruhle. In this program, we'll show you the tactics and techniques that your players will need to master to be successful. Let's now begin with a look at volleyball tactics. We define tactics as strategies used to reach offensive and defensive goals. After your team has successfully received a serve or volley, you begin your offense. When the defense is without a blocker in a 3-on-3 game, the offense should assume this tactical alignment. The hitter is in the hitting position, awaiting the setter's set. As the hitter attempts to attack the set from the setter may step off the net and prepare for the opponent's return. After passing to the setter, the passer looks to see if the hitter has a blocker, then prepares to assist in the event of the opponent's return when the hitter hits the offensive attack. If the hitter passes the first ball, the setter will still set, and the passer can still assume the hitting role on the third contact. When your opponents have a blocker at the net, you should make minor adjustments in your offensive alignment to protect against a block that may deflect back into your court. If your hitter faces a blocker, the passer and the setter should move in closer to the hitter to cover the possible blocked ball. Players must recognize when a blocker is at the net and communicate this to other teammates as they set the ball up for the hitter. Teammates who are covering the hitter should be in a low and balanced position, ready to move in any direction. Although making the adjustment for a blocker at the net is not difficult, it is essential to an effective offense. In 6-on-6 volleyball, offensive alignments are more complex. If your opponent chooses not to block, the setter will be played by the middle front player. This allows the other players to focus on their individual areas of responsibility. Assuming the opponents dig the attack, the players with defensive responsibility can cheat their way back to their defensive positions with little threat of their teammates' attack getting blocked. Most balls are blocked in front of the 10-foot line, so your alignment should protect that immediate area around the attacker. Whether your opponents use 1 or 2 blockers, you'll need to adjust your tactics. The likelihood of your team's attack getting blocked has increased, and all players should share the responsibility of covering the ball when the block occurs. If the left front attacker receives the set, the setter and left back will share equal responsibility in picking up the ball blocked 10 feet or closer to the net. If the right front player receives the set, then the setter and right back will have primary responsibility. It is critical that all other players assume positions to protect the majority of the court, defending against balls that land elsewhere. A basic rule in covering the court is that a backcourt defender should never be directly behind or beside a teammate. By following this rule, the court will be balanced in terms of defensive coverage. The first defensive tactic to be decided is who should receive the serve. The passer, who can move toward the target player or setter, should receive the serve. Players who try to receive a serve while moving away from the target will have difficulty controlling the pass and directing it to the target. In this example, the passer here should pass the serve instead of the hitter, because the hitter would be moving away from the setter in order to play the ball, whereas the passer will be moving forward toward the setter. If your opponent has a weak serving game, use the tactic where only 2 players receive the serve. This tactic gives those 2 players responsibility for every serve that crosses the net. Passing with more than 2 players, on the other hand, often leads to breakdowns in communication, as more people try to simultaneously communicate their decisions. In 3-on-3 volleyball, 2 players are positioned back in the court to receive the serve. One is designated the passer, the other a passer-hitter. The third player is the setter, who is positioned at the net. The object for the passer and the passer-hitter is to pass the serve to the setter without causing the setter to move very far. As long as the passer and the passer-hitter can handle the opposition's serves, the setter is in a very favorable court position to set and initiate the offensive attack. Here we see the defensive alignment of a 2-person serve-receive in 6-on-6 volleyball. In most cases, the left back and right back players will receive all serves and will pass to the setter. Notice that the serve could still be played by the middle back player, but the emphasis will be on the left and right back players passing the serves. If your team is having difficulty receiving the serve, you can move players into a 3-player serve-receive position. By adding 1 more passer, communication becomes even more important. Passers should always call ball or mine, even when it might seem obvious to the player pursuing the ball. Balls that are served between 2 passers require still more communication. The basic rule to follow when the ball is served between 2 passers is this: the passer who can move into the seam and move in the direction of the target should take the ball. If one of your 3 designated passers is more skilled than the others, give this passer responsibility for more court coverage. Just make sure the other passers are aware of this. In 3-on-3 volleyball, 3 players can cover the court and effectively defend the short serve. Here we see all 3 players close to the net, anticipating a short serve. The setter is in position to receive a short serve in the middle, the hitter at the short line, and the passer at the short cross-court angle. In order to defend a long serve, the setter moves here to cover the cross-court long serve. The setter is the least likely to receive the long serve because this angle is the most difficult for a server to hit. However, he or she is in the best possible position to set the second ball from the hitter or the passer. The hitter and the passer cover the long line and the long middle serving angles. If the setter receives the first contact, the passer or the hitter becomes the setter. In 6-on-6 volleyball, the 3-player serve-receive is similar to the 2-person serve-receive. Here we see that the middle back passer is the 3rd person to be involved in the serve-receive. He or she has responsibility for the deep serves. An important tactical consideration is deciding whether to defend with a block or use a free ball alignment. When defending against teams with a strong hitting attack, you should use a blocker. Here we see the setter is at the net as a blocker. The hitter covers the short angle that is open around the block, and the passer covers any ball hit down the line. Balls that are hit over the setter will have a high trajectory. This will allow the passer and the hitter more time to communicate and cover their areas. Here we see the 6-on-6 defensive alignment against a team with a power spike attack. In this defensive alignment, a power spike coming from the opponent's left side will be blocked by the middle front and right front players. The left front player should be near the 10-foot line, covering any short balls coming off the block. The middle back player is responsible for balls hit deep or off the block and should be positioned on the baseline. The left and right back players should be about 18 feet from the net and close to their respective sidelines. Notice that they will be primarily moving forward. Opponents who see your block may use an off-speed hit to avoid it. This soft hit will be placed to a part of the court with no defenders. In 3-on-3 volleyball, you would position the setter at the net to attempt to block or deflect any type of offensive attack. The passer moves in to cover the off-speed hit or tip just behind the setter's block. The hitter covers the backcourt area for any long off-speed hits or tips. Communication is essential in this type of defense. Who will play the ball depends largely on where it is placed and who has the best angle to make the play. Recognizing the off-speed attack is critical to defending against it. An opponent's attacker who approaches slowly or whose arms swing slowly is likely to hit an off-speed shot. Players who have consistently been blocked also are likely to try an off-speed attack to avoid getting blocked again. In 6-on-6 volleyball, the off-speed hit alignment is essentially the same as the power spike alignment. The only difference is the position of the left front digger. This player should assume more responsibility for digging the off-speed attack, since these attacks primarily are directed to the middle of the court. While the off-speed attack can be used as an effective offensive weapon, it more typically is used when attackers lack confidence that they can attack the ball around the block. If your players can't get their wrists over the net, or your opponents are hitting a lot of free balls, you don't need to use a block in your team defense. However, you will need to know where to place your defenders to defend against the three major varieties of offensive attacks. Free balls are usually hit high, soft, and deep. A block will not be effective in defending a free ball attack. In 3-on-3 volleyball with no block, all three players are free to help pass the ball. The hitter moves back to cover the cross-court angle. The passer covers the middle of the court. And the setter backs off the net, awaiting the pass from either the hitter or the passer to start the offensive attack. For 6-on-6 volleyball, players are spread out more for a free ball alignment. The left front and right front players move back from the net to the 10-foot line. This allows them to play any free ball in front of them. Any ball going deeper into their court should be played by the backcourt players. They will balance the court, each being responsible for 1/3 of the area. If your team is defending a power spike without a blocker in 3-on-3 volleyball, move your players off the net in position to cover the angles of the court. In this defensive alignment, the hitter covers the cross-court angle, the setter covers the attack down the line, and the passer covers the area between these two angles. All three players should be in ready position to dig a hard-driven spike. With 6 players, the players in the back row must be more flexible to dig the opponent's attack. Because the front row players will not be blocking, the 2 front row players closer to the point of attack move back from the net 5 to 6 feet to defend against off-speed attacks. The blocker farthest from the point of attack, in essence, becomes a back row defender. Having the middle and right front players responsible for off-speed attacks frees the back row defenders to concentrate on any hard-driven spikes that go deep into their court. When defending an off-speed hit or tip without a blocker at the net, players move in closer to the net to pick up the short, soft hits. In this alignment, the hitter covers the cross-court angle. The setter covers the short court near the net, and the passer plays the deep court. Opponents sometimes use the off-speed hit to throw the defensive team off balance. Remind your players to talk and call for the ball in making the first dig. In 6-on-6 volleyball, the alignment for the off-speed hit without a blocker requires that the left front digger comes in 3 to 4 feet from the sideline. In this alignment, a good front row can see and dig the off-speed attack, while a strong back row can take responsibility for any off-speed attacks that fall between the front and back rows. How quickly and balanced your team moves between defense and offense is called transition. Here's how a typical 3-on-3 transition sequence works. The ball is put in play with the serve. The opposing team must pass the serve, set, and attack offensively. The defensive team may block and dig the attack, then begin its offense. Recovery is the key word in describing volleyball transitions. Next, we're going to cover basic volleyball techniques, those skills used by an individual to play the game. They include serving, forearm passing, setting, hitting, and blocking. We begin with serving. Besides putting the ball in play, the serve can be an effective way for a team to score points quickly. In youth volleyball, the server usually learns the underhand serve first. Start with the weight on the back foot and the ball held in front of the toe by the shelf or non-hitting hand. Keep the eyes focused on the ball until contact is made with the heel of the hand. Transfer weight from the back to the front foot as the arm swings to contact the ball. Drop the shelf hand and immediately hit the ball. Follow through with the hitting arm toward the top of the net. The hitting arm and back leg should be in line with the follow-through. The overhand serve requires more coordination, timing, and strength, and should be taught to players only after they have mastered the underhand serve. The overhand serve is more challenging for novice players because it requires a consistent toss. The toss is the key to a successful overhand serve. A ball tossed too high, too low, too far in front, or too far in back will cause the server to chase the toss. This often results in serving errors. Servers should think of the ball as an extension of the shelf hand reaching up. The shelf hand holds the ball extended from the body at shoulder level in front of the hitting arm. Players should lift the ball above the shelf hand when that arm is fully extended. The toss should be 12 to 18 inches above the shelf hand in front of the hitting shoulder. The body is pointed at the target area with the weight back on the opposite leg. The elbow of the hitting arm is about at ear level and a ball's radius away from the head of the server. Weight transfers forward as the shoulders and hips come through, and the player prepares to make contact with the ball. The heel of the hand should make contact with the center of the ball. The arm should be fully extended, keeping the wrist firm. The hitting arm should swing fast, generating a quick and fluid motion. Players who are having trouble serving over the net will improve if they swing fast. On the follow-through, the hitting arm should follow behind the hitting side leg. The arm must not cross in front of the body after making contact. The forearm pass is used for receiving serves and spikes, for digging balls no more than waist high, and for playing any ball that has gone into the net. The forearm pass begins in the ready position. Players should stand with their feet shoulder width apart, toes turned in slightly, and the right foot just slightly ahead of the left. As they bend at the waist and flex the knees, their weight should slightly shift forward onto the balls of their feet. Make sure that the head and shoulders are only slightly in front of the knees, and the arms are relaxed and extended in front of the body at a 45-degree angle. Players should join their hands to form a flat surface or platform with the forearms. The thumbs should be together and pointed down. Players should dip their shoulders and tilt their platform to direct their passes to the target player. The ball should make contact above the wrist and below the elbow. Players should avoid swinging their arms in order to maintain control of the ball. Digging is somewhat similar to forearm passing. The main difference is that with digging, there is little time for players to move, get into position, and play the ball. When digging a ball, players should allow it to drop as low as possible, increasing the time they have to play it. The ball should be cushioned to absorb the force from the hard-driven spike. It should be directed high toward the center of the court, making it easier for the setter to play the ball. Players should flick their wrists or flex their elbows at contact to ensure that the ball reaches adequate height and stays on their side of the net. The overhead pass is any pass contacted above the player's head. It may be used to play a free ball, that is, a ball moving high and slow, to set up an attack, or to keep the ball in play when a forearm pass or attack is not possible. The best known overhead pass is the set, which is usually the second contact made in setting up an attack. The person directing the attack is called the setter, and the contact by the setter is called a set. Because the setter can see the entire court from the net, she is able to determine which hitter is in the best position for an attack. Have your players stand facing the left side of the court with their feet shoulder width apart, the right foot slightly ahead of the left. The knees should be bent slightly with the weight on the balls of the feet. In this semi-crouched stance, the players will raise and cup their hands above the forehead, waiting for the ball. Players should shape their hands like the volleyball itself, in front of the forehead. The ball can be seen through the window formed by the thumbs and forefingers. The wrists are cocked back, and the fingers are spread and relaxed, 4 to 8 inches from the forehead, as if holding a volleyball. Contact with the ball is made at a point near the middle of the forehead. The pads of the fingers, not the palm, should contact the ball. Whenever possible, players should square their shoulders to the target. As contact is made, the player extends the arms and legs up. Spiking a ball is one of the most thrilling plays at all levels of volleyball. It's the primary skill used to attack the ball, and is usually the third contact in the 3-contact offense: pass, set, spike. The spike begins with the attacker in a relaxed position with arms comfortably at the sides. She should be at the side of the court, about 8 to 12 feet back off the net, waiting for the set. The spiker must turn and run back several steps from the net to have enough room to approach and hit the ball explosively. The most common attack approach is a 4-step pattern. Left-handed players start step 1 with the left foot. Right-handers begin with the right foot. A player needs an explosive movement from step 2 to step 3 to set up the quick foot plant into the jump. The arms extend and swing straight back as high as possible on the third step. As the fourth step begins, the arms drive forward in a full sweeping motion to help drive the player off the ground to attack the ball. In hitting the ball, think of the arm as a whip and the hand as the tip of that whip. The snap of the whip begins in the shoulder. The elbow of the hitting hand should be drawn back, high, and away from the shoulder. As contact is made, the hand should be firm and open, hitting the top half of the ball with the palm. Make contact with the ball at the 1 to 2 o'clock position. Follow through quickly. In the follow-through, the arm should remain on the same side of the body, not crossing over the body, finishing behind the hitting side leg. Other types of attacks, such as the off-speed spike, can also keep opponents off balance. The off-speed spike is a slower speed ball hit to an open space. It's often used against a block, when the hitter can see an open area around or behind the block that is not being defended. The attacker may take a full swing, but then let up and hit the ball softly to an open area. A down ball is another attack used from a standing position to place the ball into the opponent's court. A player who doesn't have time for an approach or jump can hit the down ball. A tip is an open-handed placement of the ball made with the pads of the fingers. An attacker uses a tip when he sees an opportunity to place the ball in an open area and is not able to swing fully. Remind players that they may not hold, grasp, or throw the ball when tipping. The defensive technique of blocking involves good timing and the ability to read the offensive hitter's intentions. The objective in blocking is to block a hard-driven spike back into the opponent's court, or to deflect it high into the air on the blocker's side of the court. In youth volleyball, with a smaller court and fewer players, blocking is limited to one blocker and some simple footwork. Players begin the block by getting into the ready position. They should stand facing the net with their hands open and relaxed and held shoulder-width apart at head level. The knees are slightly bent and the weight is on the balls of the feet. Players will move in this coiled position, ready to spring up to block an opponent's attack. As the blocker jumps to block, the hands should surround and smother the ball. The blocker's fingers are spread and angled to deflect the ball toward the floor. A blocker moving along the net uses a step, close, step footwork pattern to get into position across from the hitter. From the semi-crouched, ready position for blocking, the player steps first with the leg closer to the direction in which she intends to move. Next, the blocker closes the feet together by pushing off the trailing foot. The feet do not cross. The player is now ready to explode up to block the attack. This step, close, step footwork helps players control momentum and maintain balance as they block. As the attacker goes up to hit, the blocker watches the hitter and explodes up from the coiled position with both arms and hands extended to block the ball back into the opponent's court. Players should land on both feet and be ready to move in any direction after blocking. In most cases, the blocker should time her jump after the attacker has jumped, since the attacker must still swing at the ball. A blocker who is short, is a weak jumper, or is late jumping to block may perform a soft block. The blocker's fingers are still spread, but the hands are angled backward toward the blocker's court. The soft block merely deflects the ball back into the blocker's court to be played by teammates. The rules allow the blocker's team to make 3 more contacts if a soft block is deflected and playable. As your players begin to master the tactics and techniques we've just shown, they'll improve their performance, boost their confidence, and increase their enjoyment of the game. And speaking of game, we highly recommend that you use the games approach to teaching them these tactics and techniques. This approach uses small-sided games with well-defined goals that focus on specific aspects of competition. Players learn quickly through this approach and love it because the way they learn is through playing games.
You can learn more about coaching volleyball and using the games approach from the book Coaching Youth Volleyball and the video The Games Approach to Coaching Volleyball. To order these products and to find more information on youth sports, contact the American Sport Education Program.